Hello everyone, my name is Ashley McCoy and I will be taking you through the restorative practice portion in this presentation. Welcome and I'm glad that you're here. So we're going to start out learning a little bit about restorative practice along with St. Paul Public Schools story with restorative practice. So in 2015, St. Paul piloted RP in 6 of our schools. St. Paul also chose specific language around RP because we believe that RP is contemporary language to describe what Indigenous and communities of color around the world as a way of being. In front of you, you will see the principles of RP. So it is the system, not the children, that needs to be made whole. People are profoundly interconnected and inherently good. People learn best in relationship, and people are more accountable to relationships than rules. As mentioned twice in that, you'll see that relationships is a big piece to RP. And as Angel mentioned earlier, relationship building is a competency area in SEL. Some of the ways RP shows up in the classroom and/or buildings in St. Paul are community building circles, which you will hear about in this presentation. Here is a visual showing you which schools are using RP school-wide. As you can see, every year it is growing, and right now we have a total of 30 schools. Next, we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can use to use a restorative approach when working with students. So restorative approaches are built on values, which separate the person from the behavior. They promote accountability and seek to repair any harm caused in a situation. And even if you're not a restorative practice school, know that you can take a restorative approach in these proactive, not reactive ways. So you'll see we have community building circles, we're going to talk about restorative questions, and effective statements. First, we will talk about community building circles. So community building circles are a big part of restorative practice. Sitting in a circle allows for every voice to be heard and for everyone to be seen in a safe way. Circles can be used to develop relationships and build community, while also responding to conflicts or problems that arise. 3 important parts to circles are centerpieces, talking pieces, and guidelines. A centerpiece represents the center of the community. Talking pieces are passed around the circle, allowing everyone in the circle the opportunity to speak or pass. And circle guidelines are a set of shared agreements that help to define the expectations for participation. So on your right, you'll see, on your far right, you'll see examples of circle guidelines. And to the left of that, you'll see a variety of talking pieces. And then above that, you'll see an example of a centerpiece of what that looks like. So the next piece are effective statements. And effective statements are all about language. So the language people uses. And restorative practices ranges from an informal to a formal process. And moving from far left to right on the continuum, the process becomes more formal and involves more people and more planning. So the first process, effective statements, center around the language one uses. So as you can see again on the bottom, that the further right you go, the more intensive the circle can get and more planning that happens. So effective statements are a crucial first step that I talked about already. They are often described as personal expressions of feelings in response to others' positive or negative behaviors. And the idea is for staff to connect students with how their behavior is affecting or impacting self or others. Researchers have repeatedly found that students are completely unaware of the impact, positive and negative, that their behavior has on others. Effective statements are just another way of expressing your feelings. Effective statements bring you closer to the person rather than further away. And so in the bottom there I wrote, how we use language matters. And as you can see, and as you've heard, effective statements is all about the language. So here is a visual that is linked in the resources in Schoology that you can also print off and have if you'd like. They call these honest expressions, but they're very similar to effective statements. So how you use this visual is you start with an observation, followed by a feeling, your need, and then a request. So you'd start with when I see or hear, and then I feel, you're going to enter that emotion. Because I need, what do you need from that student? And would you be willing to? And you'll also see that I also added I need you to, because we know sometimes that sometimes students just need a direct request from us. So we might need to say, I need you to do this instead of would you be willing to? And sometimes I do also want to point out that when using would you be willing to, it's helpful to have like a choice there. So for instance, you might say, would you be willing to draw a picture first or do your writing assignment first? So they also work that way as well. So here are some, a chart of showing typical responses and then how you can change it into an effective statement. So the first one says, good job, Zamaya. And while I'm talking out loud and thinking about it, I do want to point out that effective statements are also used in a positive way too. So this is an example of that. So again, good job, Zamaya. And what you could say is, when I saw you working during the entire math class, I felt proud of you because I know how challenging math can be for you at times. So again, being very specific. The next one says, sit down and be quiet. An effective statement would be, when I see you walking around class and talking while I'm teaching, I feel angry because no one else can hear me. Could I ask you to tell me what it sounds like when students are listening while I teach? And finally, I don't want to see you fighting with him. The way you could change that is, when I saw you put your hands on James, I was scared because I want everyone to feel safe. Would you be willing to tell me what happened? So those are just some examples of how to use and change that language to be more effective. And it's really important to note that this takes time. It's really hard to train our tongues to talk like this. So it might feel messy and you're going to make mistakes. But just know that as we practice this, it becomes more natural and easier. So for the reflection piece, for the discussion question, what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of these scenarios to respond to using effective statements. So I'm not going to read them to you, but you can choose one of the 5 here to read and then respond to making it more effective or turning it into an effective statement. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and click next and share your response in the discussion.